Hello everybody, it's time for Constellation TV episode 34. Can't make any jokes about these numbers. Oh, that was smooth. 3, 4.
Like that?
Wow. I've not seen that. Where is that from? With my fabulous co-host Liz Miller. Hey Liz, how are you doing?
What's up, Holger? I got to actually see you like live and in person.
Yes, we had to travel to the Florida swamps, right? I mean,
we did have to leave our mutual state of California to go to where there was it's
not good for our carbon footprint, right? So this is why SAP themed their conference where we met at Sapphire, all about sustainability, right? So analysts should not meet in Orlando.
Yeah, but hey, it was fun. It was like summer camp, right? So it was great. It was great. Yeah. But that does lead us kind of pretty fast and furious into covering the news.
So certainly, Sapphire was a big event to look at. Hadn't happened for 3 years. Lots of things that could have happened. Much smaller event, only 7,000 people. I'm not even sure 7,000 people were there. Kudos to SAP to experiment, right? Making a very, very small keynote area. Traditionally, it would always be in the corner, which was also innovative. Huge show floor, right? Was in the middle, standing room only, because we're thinking people would stream from different places, and was on all the screens which they had in all the theaters there. But I guess when people travel all the way to Orlando and they can see people live, they want to see people live, not on the screen, like if they stayed at home, right? So,
yeah, but you know what? Like they try. Here's my thing. They tried and they did what we've always been complaining about as people started doing hybrid events, right? Which was don't just throw up a camera and film your live event and expect the virtual audience to be happy with that, because we've just experienced what a virtual event could be, right? So a virtual experience and a live experience have to have those dedicated lanes where there's a whole lot of similarity and commonality, but they each have their own flavor. And you know what? SAP accommodated for that, right? They had special theaters where they were filming things that were really just intended for that virtual audience. You know,
even the keynote, right? They had their CMO Julia White being the lady on the street, right?
Yeah,
doing like takes and so they tried. I mean, you have to give them.
They tried. I think that from the perspective of taking that next step of upping their game in becoming that storytelling organization, you know, I think they took a shot. Do I think it was 100% successful? No, but you know what? It was pretty darn good. And quite frankly, it was a lot better than some of the other folks that I've seen out there. They're just like, I can make a virtual experience with a Steadicam and a boom mic. You're like, no, you can't. Like, you know, it's not just about filming your CEO. So I think that they had those virtual stories. I like that they had a lot of their virtual interviews that were even happening on the keynote stage that were actually happening live. They weren't kind of like the canned segment and then someone beamed in. So I think they put a lot of thought into it. And I think that because this was really Julia White's, you know, and the entire marketing organizations, she's really revamped the entire marketing infrastructure at SAP, right?
She Microsoft-ified it. Is that the right word?
Well, I don't know if it's that. I think it's more like CMO.
Lots of right? Microsoft people coming there, right? We had a totally Microsoft-ish event, right? We had Day Zero, which only happens at Microsoft events, so big Q&A. We had a book of news.
That's true. The book of news was impressive.
Right? We had a couple of them. Right, the reporter on the street was Microsoft-like, the demos was Microsoft-like, but it's good, right? So, I mean, take the good stuff to Microsoft.
Take the good stuff and bring it with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what I think that the team was able to do was to really look at Sapphire through outside fresh lenses, which we know is not a comfortable position for SAP all the time, right? It's very much about, well, we've always done it this way, and we've always had Sapphire in all capital letters, and then it's been Sapphire now, like it was an imperative, right? So I think that they are trying.
Yeah, that was huge, dropping the now, finally.
Right? But it's little things like that I think it was funny when I step back and look at it now. I think it is kind of the when you put all of those little things together, they kind of did something that is a little bit out of character for kind of old school SAP, which was they changed, right? Like
there was a three-year break too, right? Completely different executive team. Christian Klein has not done a keynote as Sapphire, I think.
Yeah.
It was just a media thing 3 years ago. Sorry if memory fools me. So completely different management team, right? Too bad that the head of product, Tomasawa, I think, wasn't there. That threw a curveball to everything, right? But he was well represented by Jan Gilk.
You know what I noticed this year that I really... but a Christian's personality, right? I think in the first year when he was doing the keynote, it was very much like, I just got thrown into the deep end. Here I go with the keynote. Like year 2 was very much like, hey, we're growing, we're making this massive change, we're making this massive commitment to the cloud. We're gonna become that developer-friendly organization that people say we can't. Like it was a lot of trying to prove what they wanted to do. This, like he was smiling, he was kind of like, he was joking, he was jovial. And I think that he's kind of come into a bit of, I don't want to say comfort because comfort connotes like laziness, and that's not what it is. But I think he's feeling really good about how he wants to be a CEO, and that was really nice to see. I kind of liked it.
Yeah. And still, you can't be comfortable at your first large user conference.
No.
And he took that really well. Also, I mean, I wasn't there Wednesday. There was no Hasso keynote, right? The big eminence, the owner background thing, which was there for the last 10 plus years or so. Basically, Hasso was gone from Sapphire and came back when Bernd Leukert, 2013, came back.
Yeah, I remember that.
And like coaching Bernd Leukert to do that and so on, right? So means that Hasso, half of the owners, third of the owners, has turned over the keys to Christian, which is in the ultimate confidence side.
I mean, I was going to say that's the ultimate kind of gold star there that didn't need to happen. But the thing that I found really interesting was I think that SAP is on this path of really trying to redefine some of the very common language that we talk about in tech and that we talk about in business. Certainly from the angle that I get to look into SAP about. Yep. It was not so much about how do we stitch these pieces together. Integration wasn't so much about how do we take some glue and make it all fit. It was really more about integrating with what their customers needed, integrating kind of processes and bringing it all together. And I liked that conversation. I'm not going to lie, because I think we sit in these conferences and we hear all about how, hey, we're going to pat ourselves on the back because we bought all these things and it took us 3 years to finally make them work together. And that's what we call integration. And that's not what they were talking about, right? They were talking about how do we integrate fully with your business, and how do we ensure that your business integrates with your customers? And I think they were just being very realistic about the fact that business is in a really odd spot right now where we have to have this visibility. We have to have data that's integrated. We have to have systems that's integrated, but we have to be integrated with our needs of our customer. And I think that they've adopted that conversation, and they're one of the only organizations out there that can probably make it happen.
Yeah. So interesting. As you know, I said it before, like I asked the board, why shouldn't I be underwhelmed, right? I had more expectations of 3 years, no Sapphire, what has all been built at SAP. I think they could have managed expectation a little better by also saying they have all these regional Sapphires, right? The hashtag was SAP Sapphire Orlando. If they would have said, okay, this one is about sustainability and supply chain, and you hear about the other areas at different places later in the year, fine, fair enough, right? I mean, you understand if you split from 1 to 5, 6, 7 events, right? But even when they had 3, 4 Sapphires, the Orlando one was the big one. The other ones were the warm-up and 2, 3 new things, right? Yeah. So we'll see if more happens there. My personal theory is, from seeing many of these events now, is product development has taken a big hit during COVID. Yeah, I don't see many of the other vendors having delivered the same as they usually would do. It's all about announcements, what's going to come now, what's there. And I mean, the sustainability part, I mean, talked to Thomas Sauer, I think about that 3.5 years ago, where I thought, hey, Fridays for Future, important thing, everybody cares, let's do investments, right? So that's also a long haul if you think about 3.5 years. Can I play devil's
advocate just a second? Like just a second.
Please.
Right? Because I think, isn't one of the value propositions of why we move to these cloud, rapid, agile, constantly developing, constantly updating? Like, are you saying that what you weren't seeing were the big, like, this is the new suite, this is the new thing, this is the new tool? Because I feel like all the incremental updates and changes, all of the incremental advancements, because of cloud, that's what we want, right? We don't want people to hold the innovation for Sapphire. We want you to release it when it's good to go.
That's the marketing answer, right? At least from telling customers who don't pay attention the whole year, right, and don't even know what they have, is you have to roll this up, right? And you have to say, here's the eye chart slide, right? Here's the important thing. Here's what customers have been uptaking. Here's what you're using. Here's what you have. Here's what you could be using. And none of that happened. It was all the focus about the new things, right? Yeah. And then new things were intangible. I mean, it was great to hear there's going to be a green ledger, but where is the green ledger? How does the green letter work? When is it coming, right? So it's like, I mean, I'm not throwing just SAP under this, right? I mean, the Workday had their innovation summit, ADP had their global customer conference. You tell me, Salesforce.
You went to Oracle. You went to Oracle right after Orlando.
I went to Oracle's HCM Analyst Summit, and yeah, the same thing. They would always show the eye chart of all they've done. The eye chart's gone missing, right? And I asked them about it and said, like, I mean, you have 3,000 developers. What did you guys do all the time, right? So tough for everybody, right? They said, no, we'll deliver the eye chart, but here we are on Tuesday. The event was over Thursday. I haven't gotten the eye chart yet, right? So, and one shouldn't be mentioned, right? One development executive, which I have in high esteem, he said, it's really hard, and we'll have our work from home segment later. It's really hard in product development to kick new things off without travel, remotely. So for whatever reason, I remember that for my 25 years. Sorry?
So it's the kickoff. It's like getting that idea up off the. Okay, we need to talk about that last segment. No more.
Yeah, do the brainstorming. Okay, we have that in that segment.
So what else? We got probably about a minute to spare. Anything new and hot on the news items for you?
Yeah, so quickly on Oracle, all about Oracle Me, their employee experience, right? It has a shot, right? You know, I'm pretty critical because it spans all of ERP, right? And people spend 5-10% of their time in all of ERP, not just in HR, but whatever their line of function is, their CRM system, their manufacturing system, their purchasing system, their finance system. So if you bring things there together, someone could say, yeah, I'm going to stay at a company where Oracle does my better user interface and experience. I'm not going to go somewhere else, right? So it could help there from that perspective.
That's cool.
Otherwise, I mean, yeah, we see the delays, right? One of the hot startups in the quantum space, right? Rigetti has to stretch out their roadmap because of chip shortages, more costs, right? Supply chain issues. What was interesting, the Rackspace saga, one of the first cloud companies ever, right? From public to private to public, is now trying pieces off to go. Private Google I/O has been happening, right?
Yeah. Hey, I heard a rumor. There's this guy that's got a lot of money. I think he's from South Africa. He wants to buy Twitter, so that's happening. Then, but now we can't go through with the deal because it's. I think last week, he made the claim that upwards of 90% of the audience could be bots. So.
Yeah. Well, but now I think it's shrewd negotiating, right? I mean, Twitter has always been claiming 5% is only bots, right? Which
it's all negotiation. It's sadly negotiation and stock deflation.
Let's see how many they are, right?
But at the end of the day, you know, he's telegraphing what he wants to do, right? Because if you're really worried about how many bots there are, that means you're tallying up subscription dollars to turn Twitter into a subscription service, right? So all of a sudden, your revenue model changes drastically if you've got 20% of bots, because that means you can't charge a monthly fee to that bot, right? So I think that there's an interesting dynamic going on here when we talk about free speech, yet we're buying an advertising platform. So who knows? But I think we got to wrap it up, Holger.
Last 1 month is from the startup land, right? So there was always never money in open source, right? So open source for services, and then they went out of business. So Ivan, close to my heart, Finnish startup, raised 220 million late stage funding, and they're making open source manageable for the enterprise. So thought that there's that much money, multiple billion evaluation, so good to see. And we'll see if enterprises get more comfortable, or well, they have to be comfortable, they use it anyway. But if there's a way to make money with open source.
Sounds good. Well, listen, we got a couple segments coming up here. We got a great conversation with my buddy PVK talking about some new marketing thoughts and thinking about what's happening in marketing operations. So stay tuned for that. I think you and I are going to get together at the very end of this show and bat around some issues around future of work.
Don't miss this one. In the meantime, of course, Forza Milan, chance to become Italian champion, win the Scudetto next Sunday.
Can't forget the Italian champion.
12 years of drought will might be over. So.
Hey Prashant, it's so great to see you. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. Welcome. Listen, we're going to dive right in because I got some big questions. You and I, what our audience does not know is you and I get to talk about marketing stuff all the time with each other, and we get into some great conversations. And I thought, we need to record this. This is nuts. So let's dive right in. Listen, one of the things that I've been tracking, for years now, it seems, is this kind of frenetic change that the actual role of marketing has gone through, right? We went through this age of being the storyteller. We've been through the age of being kind of the metrics driven marketing mavens, but we're in a really interesting time now where marketing is really being tasked with being the growth drivers of the organizations, right? Chief marketing officers or CMOs are pushing for new intelligence. They need new data, new insights to be able to actually move these really smart campaigns forward. How are you seeing growth? Because at Zoho, you guys are working with some of the best of the best. You're working with some of like the fastest moving organizations out there. These are teams that are just hungry for growth, right? That's why they joined Zoho. That's why they're on the platform. That's why they're looking at things like Marketing Plus. Tell me, how are you seeing growth become that marketing mandate?
I think with the last about 15 years or so, the amount of technology that has entered the marketing landscape is enormous. And I'm pretty sure there's somewhere out there, there's an infographic that says some 8,000, 9,000 marketing offerings are available in the market today.
And
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure there's something like that outside. So, for what it's worth, I mean, we can visibly see the amount of technology available. So all that has sort of made marketing a natural sort of area where technology is being adopted, and therefore sort of also help marketing lead the charge on digital experience transformation, alongside IT, of course, but more on the more focused on the business rather than on the technology side, and that necessarily gives marketing a natural responsibility for growth to start with. Right? And the second thing is that in sort of most companies, marketing is the team or the org that creates most of the content anyway. With self-service or retail or sales or commerce, or even in fact in recent times community, the sort of the content, the vast majority of these experiences are driven by content that comes largely from marketing as an organization. And then of course, marketing for many years has sort of been the organizational function that analyzes the market, that analyzes the customer and the competition and things like that. So marketing is naturally in that, the right sort of vantage point to see the future beyond the current financial year. And,
I love that. I love that we're in the vantage point of being able to see the future. I think that's like the quotable moment. We're just gonna let's just end now, because I think that one caught it. I love that statement. But I think a lot of times, especially in technology, we kind of have this habit of talking about marketing, and sometimes it's really easy to forget the marketer, right? The person who's actually there. And I think you said it right. When we look at that crazy, wild Clash of Clans map with how much technology is out there, marketers are being asked, well, of course, to do a lot more with less. I think that's been a trend for many, many years, but we're being actually asked to navigate how we do that across that really complex landscape. And we're having to really shift the way we work around all these different tools that kind of get thrown at us. And we're starting to hit that tipping point where none of this feels sustainable. Right? Toggling between 9 different tools, exporting Excel spreadsheets every 10 seconds, having to figure out how we're just going to get our jobs done. So how do we stop this? From where you sit, and I mean, you see this day in and day out of people literally fighting with technology, right? How do we start to address how marketers work toward this marketing mandate for growth?
Right. So I think one of the things I wanted, before I get into the core of the answer, I wanted to also point out that in recent years, in the last 3 or 4 years, we're starting to see CMOs become CEOs. So that is essentially a huge shot in the arm for marketing and marketers, because it shows you have the necessary skill sets, at least in some context, to lead the broader organization, not just marketing.
That's
absolutely right. And in terms of challenges, we're looking at things like visibility across all of the activities that the team is working on, and then collaborating with various stakeholders. Now that marketing's role has been sort of broadly accepted to be cutting across various functions like sales or commerce or success, things like that, right? And so what we are seeing as a result of those is the adoption of unified marketing platforms. Right? We believe that wholeheartedly, and we've been offering a unified customer experience platform for many years now, and just drawing off of that observation of that market, we're starting to see the same thing, happen with marketing, even more so because the marketing stack has 9,000 applications, right? So people want to consolidate that, and I mean, a roster of integrated tools used to be a really good idea, but the pandemic has shown us that the more points of risk and inertia that you gather over time, that makes the entire organization, it lowers the bar of the organization, right?
Right.
So, for sure, that's one of the things that we definitely want to. It's a good way forward for us as well, and we certainly see that in the market as well. And unified platforms, in a certain sense, solve for all of these major problems: data availability, or collaboration, or visibility, and things like that. And second thing that we're also seeing is that software itself will begin to be personalized for the role of each employee. Right? We released something last year called Canvas, which was essentially a no-code experience builder for IT teams and organizations to build customized software experiences based on each employee's role. And we see that happening across the entire organization already.
Yeah.
And for sure, the vertical and sort of company level customizations will continue to remain relevant, but we think they'll give way for deeper individual level personalization. That's one thing. And the third is, of course, that the ease of extensibility or interoperability. That I don't think is going away anytime soon, because I don't see a realistic possibility where we can all rip and replace the entire stack, right?
Yeah,
so that's not going to happen.
I think you're totally right. I love that, because I think that, and this is something that Zoho has done really across the entirety of your portfolio, right? It's not just even kind of the belief in marketing, is that a composable architecture is foundational to have all of these applications be able to stand up and operate fully. And I think that people kind of discount that, because I think composable and headless get used interchangeably, and that's a whole nother video. But I think that what we have here is this real understanding that we have to not only support the customer and their demand for personalization, their demand that we as a company remember that we actually know them, despite our event platform doesn't connect with our email platform. Right? They don't care about that. They don't think about that. But our people do, and our people fight that every single day. And so to be able to have those platforms together is really important. Okay, crystal ball time. I want you to think okay, 2025 marketing, what gets you really excited about where marketing is going in the future?
Right. So being a marketer in a technology company that builds software for marketers, amongst other kinds of employees, I'm usually the wide-eyed kid in the candy store sort of situation when we get into a strategy roundtable internally, right? So that's I usually get overly excited and then follow up with people and things like that, right? But some of the things that I can tell you that we're already really excited by are things like privacy first by design and cookieless experiences and things like that. I mean, it's not the Brown statement there is still evolving in that sense, but we believe that it is a lot more sustainable for all of the parties that are involved in marketing to do privacy first by design, as well as with cookieless experiences. And the other thing that we're excited by and we're making a sort of a suite-wide investment is in AI, and we believe that we will never try to replace the human being in the customer experience, and we essentially want to make sure that we are able to use AI to process the vast amounts of data and rally the entire organization behind that one individual who's serving that customer at that point in time. That's the logic with which we want, and we want to be able to be it personalizing recommendations for that customer, or essentially obfuscating a ton of information that may slow down the experience for the employee. All of that stuff, we believe that AI can sort of begin to do, right? And even looking a little further into the future, even things like, for example, if AI is able to predict the patterns of when customers respond to what kind of discounts and things like that, with that information, then you can adjust your purchase volumes and procurement and all of that through the rest of the year. It makes the business more organized at a certain level.
Love it.
And
Prashant, it's always a treat. It's always a treat to get to talk to you. Thank you so much for spending this time. Gosh, listen, the future of marketing is bright, and I'm really excited to see what Zoho has coming up next.
Absolutely. Very, very happy, very excited about it in the future as well. Cheers.
Okay, we're back, Holger. It's time to talk about where we have been for the last 3 years, and that's been at home. But there's a lot of conversations, and I think we're hearing a lot of kind of back and forth on what new work environments, new work styles are going to be. We're starting to see, organizations bring back in-office work and trying to figure out how to make that something that's meaningful. We're seeing a lot of studies out there that kind of keep showing that, especially amongst younger generations, people are going to actively leave their jobs if they're not given the opportunity to work from home. So when we start to think about what kind of, as we're strategizing moving through the rest of the year, you're hearing a lot out of the HCM space and out of the future of work space. What does the future of work have to hold when it comes to how we're going to work?
Right. Yeah, super interesting time, right? Who would have thought about this? Well, I had this scenario a long time ago saying there was the big earthquake happens in California. Luckily, nobody gets killed, but it takes a long time to check if all the buildings are fine, right? So people have to work from home till all the buildings are certified, fixed, retrofitted, whatever, right? And I asked HR leaders, what do you think will be the productivity hit? Right, for you? And one of them, shouldn't mention, said, it's probably going to be 1/3. And he was the most optimistic guy.
Wow.
Right? All the other HR leaders said, we won't be able to work like this, 50%. People need their meetings, the homes are noisy, dogs are barking, kids are running. And at the end of the day, we saw that humans are extremely adaptable, right? We can figure out things, and then we're creatures of habit, right? We get used to how it is, and we realize, man, this commute, right? Even if it's 10 minutes, 2 times, right? 5 days a week, that's over 1.5 hours of my time. And because I stop at Starbucks, it's probably more 10 minutes, right? On the way back home, it's 2.5 hours, right? So that's a big time sink. And you can do stuff with that time. It doesn't have to be work, right? So it has significantly changed how we think about it. And it's so interesting between the generations, right? There's people, we were at a conference, right? There's people who saw each other for the first time, having a new manager, a new CEO.
Yeah.
Being hired newly, it's the first time I see my colleagues, right? People getting a little antsy about saying, oh my God, what do I wear? What do I do? You talk to road warriors like us. I mean, I was nervous packing my stuff and said, do I have everything? How does
Did I remember it? Yeah.
There's the TSA line, right? So where is my pre-check? Whatever. Yeah. So
But it's interesting because we say, we're creatures of habit. We're creatures, people are creatures of habit, and we're simultaneously rather flexible. Like, we can adapt and change, which is great. But
only that we don't like change. We don't like change.
We don't like change, but we can adapt, right? We can weave our way around it. What I keep hearing time and time again, though, at least from the pundits out there, is that while employees adapted, managers had a really hard time, right? Because managers who were in that old control model, the command control model, if I can see you, I know you're working, right? If I know you're here, and if I see you in the office, you must be productive.
You're still working at 5:30, you're working hard.
Right, like, you stayed till 6, you are an A+ employee. So that pull back to that norm of comfort of management seems to be really strong right now, where people want people back in the office. Yet again, we've all figured out this works. This works for a lot of us in a way that we didn't expect.
All the way to famous Silicon Valley CEO Tim Cook, right? Who's battling with his employee base to come back 3 days a week. It has to be the same days, because otherwise you shoot the efficiencies in the foot, right? And it's had this fabled head of AI hired away from Google 3-4 years ago, quit based on that, right? So you see how much the struggle will be to go back and to tap into these old efficiencies where, except Friday afternoons or Fridays, most people would work from home, right? Offices were already deserted on Fridays. But if it's Friday every day at the office doesn't make any sense anymore.
Right.
At the same time, but I'm missing a little bit about the Zooms, the Teams, the collaboration tools out there, the WebExes and so on. I forgot a bunch of them. They have not really leapt forward to make this working from home easy and better, right? And they should be at the forefront, right? They were the big winners on that. Sorry, my garbage truck, of course, comes during our segment. I hope you can hear me. But they were the big winners, right? Fabulous revenue. Zoom had like 80-90% revenue growth, right? But we're in this creative gap, but how do we make people really cooperative? And recently, I'm on to, I think the R&D function has been really hampered from the COVID and working from home part. Not that people didn't have their laptops anyway to work from home and would finish things and so on. But what somebody told me I esteem very highly is that it's really hard to kick new stuff off. Because the normal reaction was you fly everybody into a conference room, put stickers, brainstorm, and so on.
Yeah.
And collaboration windows, you have to find a way to do that, right? And I'm trying to put myself in my shoes, 25 years of development, right? So first of all, you work from home, you sort it out. Then everybody has to build COVID stuff has to come out right away. And then you take a break and say, all right, we missed our roadmap stuff anyway. What are we going to do now? Where are we going to go?
Where do you start?
Oh, maybe the first wave is going to be over in 3 months. We're going to go back to the office. Everything's normal. Turns out not everything's normal. So this on, off. The verdict is still out. There's more to come. But what I've seen so far, I think the biggest hit in the functions of an enterprise has been software development at the vendors.
That's interesting because it's about getting that first idea up off the ground and getting everyone to get excited. And I mean, yeah, there are a lot of tools, and Diane has great lists about collaboration tools. But the reality is that people have to want to use those tools, and those tools aren't necessarily organic to people. So let me ask you this, so we can wrap up here. What is something that you're seeing in this new kind of landscape of how people need to be, whether it's unleashed and unmanaged, I don't know what we even call it, right? In this new future of work, anything really excited that you're looking forward to seeing that trend come to life?
I think the really exciting thing is that the geographic focus of a talent pool is gone. Right? It had to be the person. You had to figure out to relocate the person. You couldn't get the talent because of the location. Now it's only about time zones and how crazy hours do you want to work. And I think that will make work much richer, much more talented, much more autonomous. And we have to find a way, I'm glad you said that before, we have to find a way to help the managers, because traditionally in HR software in general, there's no help for the managers. They have to sort it out. They have to deliver the results and sort all the other stuff out, right? So any focus to help the first and second level managers to work in this work from home, multiple time zone environment, who do I meet first? How do we figure out this collaborative thing? How do we do the swear in on the new direction from remotely working, right? To get the troops rallied in a fun direction. That's going to be the really interesting thing. And then, right, it's going to be really interesting how the business applications, the best practice will be changing. That's going to take a few years because they're still holding out the SAPs, the Oracles, the Workdays. Is this really permanent or not? And how does this really happen? They want to hear from customers, and customers can experiment, which is super exciting, right? There's so many interesting stories from companies doing interesting, new, innovative stuff, how they do work from home, back to work, will work, and how they're going to do that. So really excited for time for the future of work. Biggest change you could have thought of.
Huge.
Biggest change you couldn't even think of, right? I had to create this California earthquake thing, which hopefully is not happening.
I know, but it's funny because everyone looked at I think everyone looked at the moment of crisis as the future of work, like that was going to define it. But I actually think it's the aftermath, right? It's like, we all went home, COVID happened, pandemic, oh my God, let's get the COVID stuff out. It's all of these changes to management styles, workspaces, workplaces that's starting to happen now as we start to look endemic and post-pandemic. That's the exciting stuff. Like
people like them so much. People like them so much and are so productive that they don't want to go back to the old. Perfect. Right. Change management done easy.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Listen, we are at the end of episode 34 for CRTV. We're going to be back in 2 weeks with you. Oh, no, actually, we're going to be back in like 5 weeks. We got a holiday. We got summertime. Everyone go out there, enjoy the summer. But next up is going to be Doug and Diane. I think we're going to be even doing some live streaming for Constellation's Ambient Experience Summit, which is happening on June 1st in Manhattan. We're taking over the Big Apple, or at least a little tiny part of it. We're going to go have some fun. Holger's refusing to come because we're going to talk about employee experience. We'll talk about that later. But hey, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time. Follow us on Twitter at CRTV_show, at Liz K. Miller, or at Holger MU.
But seriously, you have a lot of bad static and it's getting worse.
Okay,
not sure what it might be.
Hang on. Okay, how about this?
You're loud, fine and clear. Why did we tell her, Hannah? Now we have to hear her. Because it's my payback time on that joke, Liz. I bought this Ray-approved expensive microphone that is deposited in Germany, and it's only static. Oh, now my camera goes fading. Is there something wrong?
Yeah, it's because you went. You could have your own panel about how to be a curmudgeon. You could have a whole keynote about how to just be a contrarian, like how to host your own contrarian experience. Holger, do you like yogurt? And then we could spend the next 10 minutes talking about how no, you don't like yogurt. You only like Greek yogurt. And conferences have to have Greek yogurt because it can't be regular yogurt.
I'm flexible as long as it's yogurt, Frank.
And then someone's going to walk up to you and be like, oh my God, Holger, we don't have yogurt, but we have muesli. And then it's going to be another half hour on how they're not saying it muesli's right.
What do you mean muesli? Big picture.
I need to see the back of that hair right now. Spin it. Come on.
I have a new look. Okay, be ready for what's a mythical thing of Neptune?
The trident. Oh.
What the hell is happening right now? What am I looking at? Like, how many 9-year-olds do you let into your house to do that on like a party?
Yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, no question, right? So because they all say they can do it and then they can't, but no. But it didn't take longer. It wasn't more expensive, so I'm figuring out the cost per braid. 1, 2, 3.
There's a cost per braid ratio.
An analyst, what do you expect?
Yeah, we don't have to talk about the news. We talked about braiding. We talked about
Sapphire.
linguistics.
Linguistics.
We talked about Sapphire. We're done. We're out. See ya.
Second day on the juice cleanse.
So you're not eating anything. You're just having juice?
Yes.
We've been going for 19 minutes. Hannah's like, can you please actually tape something that has anything to damn well do with CRTV?
You didn't have any.
Holger, seriously, what are we talking about? Peace out, CRTV.